Good afternoon and welcome to this, a Hyundai i10. It has the potential to be one of the most affordable and best cars for young people. But is it? Well, let's find out. Let's start with the front. As you can see, the styling broadly reflects the rest of the Hyundai range at the time that this car was made. It's since been facelifted, but remains broadly the same on the outside, which is nondescript. It's probably the most polite way to put it. Well, especially in this colour, it looks quite a lot like a white good, doesn't it? Then maybe that's good. Less likely for someone to want to steal it. Down the side we can see what is a fairly standard two-box shape, and as you can see the roofline remains high all the way to the back of the vehicle in order to give the rear passengers enough headroom rather than going for a sportier sloping look. They've tried to achieve that by raising this waistline here, but I suspect all that does is makes it a bit uncomfortable in the back if you're a child and you can't quite see out of the window. Again, at the back, there's not much to say. There's, everything you'd usually have, tail lights, a rear wiper, but it just looks like some Hyundai. Nice big bumper though, if you have a scuff in a car park, which for the young driver might be of interest. As you can see, on the inside, in the front, it's fairly standard Super Mini fare. You have a steering wheel, a gear stick, and not a lot else. This model comes with a radio, air conditioning is standard on all models, which is quite good for a car of this spec, the all-important aux cable, a glove box, and some door bins. The front windows are electric, and the back windows wind down manually. As far as comfort goes and styling, everything in here is hard plastic. And most of it's black. You get these coloured inserts on the dash and the seats, and I believe they could be spec'd in 3 different colours, but the rest is very much like a VCR tape. It's that sort of plastic. The seats are comfortable, they're not that wide, and there's no adjustment other than the backrest and the headrest. Also, adjustment in the steering wheel is basically none. That's all you've got. But in terms of this class of vehicle, that's all I would expect. In the back, things are even more austere than they are in the front. You get door pockets. That's really it. It's manual windows, there are no seat pockets, and there's not quite enough headroom for me. I've also had to move this chair forwards in order to get in here. I wouldn't be able to sit behind myself, though I probably would be able to sit behind a shorter driver. If that was the case and you have a shorter driver in the front, it's perfectly fine on legroom. It's the headroom that would be a bit awkward if I wanted to lean back. My head hits the ceiling before it reaches the headrest. I have to sit like Gollum or something to be comfortable. There is Isofix, so you can put a child seat back here, and the doors do open nice and wide. And it's also worth noting the windows roll all the way down. So if you like Land Rover cruising in the back of your friend's small hatchback, then this is the car for your friend to buy. The boot in this car is perfectly respectable for its class. As you can see, I've got my camera equipment in here with no bother at all. However, there's not any features really. The boot floor lifts up and it reveals a wheel well where there's a tyre inflation kit. I suppose you could stash some more stuff in there with that if you wanted to, but otherwise there's no hooks or tether points or anything like that. You could fit a large suitcase standing up if you were going to the airport. If you fold the seats down, you then get a space so you could probably fit a whole weekend's worth of luggage in, or a washing machine or something. But there is quite a lip because they just fold, and there's the whole seat back to get over. So maybe there's a more practical car out there. Check this out. If you are folding your seats down, what you do have is a little slot here to put the seatbelt in. So then when you fold the seats back up, the seatbelt doesn't get trapped. That's quite nifty. Okay, well that's the inside and the outside dealt with, so let's get on to the most important bit, the driving. Okay, so what's the drive like in a Hyundai i10? Well, for the class of car it's in, it's on par. with the best in class. The steering wheel is light for city driving, but direct. You can tell where the car is going. It's not vague in any way. It's sort of the same story with the gear shift. It's a very firm gear shift. You know exactly where you're going, but it feels incredibly light, like the gear stick's not attached to anything. You suddenly wouldn't get tired of changing gear in this car. The clutch is also light. Point of contention, the brakes. The brakes are not progressive. So you start braking and then there's like a point you hit where it sort of becomes exponential. So you're gentle, whoa! You're like right forwards in the car. I'm sure you would get used to it over time, but in the short time I've been driving, that's what I'm noticing the most, is that non-progressive brake feel. Inside the cabin, as driving, it's quite nice. It's relatively tight. It's sort of, my elbow's fast against this driver's door, so a lot of shuffling on the wheel to move. I won't be making any big arm movements to move the wheel. The engine is a 3-cylinder, 1-litre unit, petrol. It has 65 raging Korean brake horsepowers, so you're not doing any overtakes, not on an A road at least. You might get away with going around a lorry on a motorway, but it's gonna take time. Also, it's a 5-speed gearbox, so at speeds above 60, you're kind of you're stuck above 3,000 RPM, which is better for acceleration, but 65 horsepower at 70 isn't making that much difference. So you're in the power band, but the power band is not that powerful. I can't imagine that you end up using that much more fuel because it's a tiny engine. You'll probably still be looking at 40 miles to the gallon, but it's going to get a bit whiny over long distances, just having that, always having it up that high. That being said, the cabin refinement's actually quite good. There's not a huge amount of road noise. Probably the most noticeable thing is the wind noise, which I imagine comes from these very large and very practical rear view mirrors that we have in here. I can really see everything behind me super clearly. The visibility is great. There aren't really any blind spots, just because the car's so short and the mirrors are so big, you can just see everything. I barely even have to turn around to look in the blind spot because it's tiny. You could only really hide a motorcyclist in it, which you should always check for motorcyclists. Otherwise, the seating position's okay. I feel quite high because I'm average male height-ish, above average male height, but not a freak like Rob. So I feel quite high up, but I do still have a decent amount of headroom. It's just, I would probably ideally sit a little lower. It feels like I'm driving in a sort of like a school chair or something. I'm sat very upright, and I wish I could bring the steering wheel just a tiny bit closer to me. My arm is I like driving with my arms at 90 degrees at the elbows. It's just a little past that. But I think I would be comfortable over a long distance. It's just maybe that I wouldn't, have the most engaging drive, but the comfort seems to be there. I'm quite young, so I'm not entirely worried about lumbar support. This seat does not have adjustable lumbar support, and it doesn't even have a pocket cushion. It doesn't even have a rear seat cushion, because here's a good trick for you. Sometimes when I wanted extra lumbar support in the Ford, I'd put in my big road mat and then a water bottle behind it, and it would just push the back of the seat out a little bit and basically give you free lumbar support. That was quite good. But on this, it's, not available. The interior of this cabin is quite obviously cost cut. All the materials are hard plastics. That being said, the steering wheel is just your standard squidgy plastic steering wheel. It's not coarse or particularly hard or anything. I wouldn't have a problem holding it for a long time. It's just not leather. And obviously there's no heated seats, no heated steering wheel, none of that, not even a heated windscreen. You've just got your climate control, but the aircon is standard, as I said earlier, which I think is quite good. It means you can walk into a second-hand car lot with one of these on them, and you don't have to be worried about finding that in the spec, because I really don't think there's no point in buying yourself a car with no aircon unless it's unavailable entirely on the model and you really want the model. But I would always get aircon. It's not that hot that much of the time, but on a hot summer's day, if you're doing motorway miles and you can't have the windows down, it really makes the difference. It really, really does. You know, this engine's so quiet I can barely tell it's there. That's quite impressive for a 3-cylinder, to get it so quiet in the cabin. And I assume there's not a huge amount of sound padding in here, you know, under the dash or anything. Maybe that's where Hyundai spent their money. I'm not going to tear the dash apart to find out, but I really am surprised that I can't hear the engine discernibly. I can hear wind noise. Maybe that's just the volume of the wind noise, who knows, but I can't hear the 3-cylinder engine, which I am quite impressed by. Road holding's good. The tyres are tiny, but the car is also tiny and the power is minuscule, so you're not going to overpower the tyres. You know, they're narrow and they've got big sidewalls, nice and squishy, so it keeps the ride fairly decent. The suspension treatment isn't that brilliant. You bobble a bit over bumps, but you would in any car of this size. And certainly at town speeds over, you know, potholed town driving that you would find in Manchester, London, Glasgow, wherever, anywhere in the UK, it will be fine. You're not going to, you know, snap it in half or anything. It feels well put together. It's you know, restricted by the class of car it's in. It's built to a price, it's built to a size. You can only do so much, and I think Hyundai have done a good job. Tell you what, this aircon is it's on 1, and I am the hottest man alive right now because I didn't take my jacket off when I got in the car, because it's -1 today. But let's whack it up to 4 and listen to this. It's like a wind machine from an 80s music video, but hot. It's like a wind machine in Death Valley. Steve Vai's going to come out and play a guitar solo any second on the top of a mountain. Now, I've covered just about everything worth covering, so let's conclude. Is the Hyundai i10 the ideal car for Britain's youth? I think yes. It's up there with the best in class, which I consider to be the VW Up. You know, it rivals it in many ways, and I think it's better than a Toyota Aygo. It's got more space in the back, and it feels a little more planted on the road, not quite as wobbly. So yeah, the insurance is barely anything. It sips petrol. It's big enough for 2 adults in the front comfortably, and probably 4 adults if you need it. It's really got everything a city car needs to offer. So I'd say, if you're thinking about getting one, then keep it on your list. Just maybe compare it to an Up or a Seat Me, because that car I think might have a tiny bit more rear headroom, especially just because it's got basically a flat roof, unlike this. But otherwise, these cars are very much toe to toe. So yeah, give it a good bit of consideration. The Hyundai i10. It's a thumbs up from me. Ciao. Okay guys, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. Comment down below if you have anything to say about what I've said about this Hyundai i10. And you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Patreon and Drive Tribe. Please follow us and or give us money in all of those places. And we will see you next time.